Welcome to our pod, and by that I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah,
I'm Laura.
and we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series one book at a time, except when we are three
Three
friends.
best
And we
friends.
have the pleasure of welcoming back to the podcast Travis Baldree. Travis is a
Travis.
video game designer, audiobook narrator, and the author of Legends and Lattes, Bookshops and Bonedust, and Brigands and Breadknives, which we are discussing today. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Oh,
We're
we
so excited to have you back.
Yeah, I'm so excited to discuss this book. It was a delightful read for a nice, like, Sunday summer day. So,
Oh, I'm
It's
glad
a
to hear it.
delightful read for any time, honestly. Travis, when we talked to you previously about Legends and Lattes and Bookshops and Bonedust, we were talking mostly about Viv, and these books focus on Viv, and Brigands and Breadknives has readers following Fern, the ratkin. So what was it like to kind of shift the focus to Fern, and was it trickier to write a ratkin? Because I feel like the details were so perfect, and we got all of her little paw mentions, and her movements and features were like so descriptive. So what was it like to switch to Fern?
Um, it felt really relevant at the time. So, for whatever reason, these books almost always end up being about whatever I am experiencing right now or have recently experienced. And Fern just aligned particularly well with my life at that particular point in time. So it was pretty easy to slip into her shoes. Also, I'm probably almost as profane as Fern is. So that was, not a big reach for me. And it was nice to write a all these books in a lot of ways have been about like, subverting your expectations for what a character would be. And it was nice to be writing basically an adventure story with someone who had no business belonging in one.
It was so fun, honestly. Like I just loved the little mentions of like she held her little paws up, and then then we have
You have to
like
keep track of the tail.
immediately
That's
a
the main thing.
battle.
What do you do with your tail? And are you tall enough to get into the chair?
well, and also, does your tail get sore? You had all the relevant questions
Yes,
right there. So,
so
well, this
perfect.
this book is also the first one where we really get to go on the road. Like we're on an adventure. You take us across multiple places and we meet multiple people. What was it like developing the world that Viv and Fern live in?
It's nice to be able to change location. So there's like it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I like going to new places. I like seeing new things. I like a little bit of fantasy tourism. I mean that's part of the fun of like Lord of the Rings or any other like journey-based fantasy is seeing all the cool sights along the way and meeting people in other various places. But one thing you lose is that you don't have a single cast of characters that stays in one place that you kind of develop with, which the other books do. So there's a kind of a fundamental change that you've got a revolving cast, which is harder to it's harder to make cozy, right? Because you're not getting comfortable in the place that you're in. And I don't suppose the book really is necessarily a cozy book, but there's a certain expectation of tone. So balancing that was a little bit tricky, but at the same time, it's just such a relief to be able to write about new places. We're here for a little while and then we're gone. We don't have to stay, but here's some neat details, and I enjoy that kind of thing. Um, and I what I like in stories when I go to different places, not being having a lot of needless detail dumped on me. So I really enjoy kind of like briskly going places, just a little bit, just enough to give you the sense of it, and then on we go. And I enjoy that.
It's amazing. And I think you're right that the traveling aspect isn't cozy, but I think your relationships are often cozy. So you still get
Mhm.
that warm hug. So,
There's just
There's
enough
honestly
of
just
a
like a
of a main cast.
yeah.
there's just like a cozy feeling to your writing in general, though. And I know you said that you like to kind of keep things brief, but in the same way, I feel like we get such a sense of place through your writings. And I think that that's a quality that not all writers have. So it's really a testament to how skilled you are at like writing scenes because you're able to give us so much detail and at the same time kind of keep us moving forward with this
I
pace.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. I think that's always kind of a really delicate thing to do as an author is to choose the right details to use to evoke something. And I think a lot of what happens when we're early on our writing careers is sometimes we just overdump those details because we really want to convince you. So we just upend the whole wheelbarrow of them, and you're like, there's so much here, you have to believe it. But I think that ends up being actually counterproductive. It's like it's too much. You're trying to
Mhm.
convince me too hard. I have a doubt.
Mhm. Well, and
You're
at
you're
that
in
point, I
Candy
feel like
Valley.
sometimes if you have too much info, readers start to like poke holes in things where
So
they're like,
much easier
wait a
to
minute.
poke holes in things if you give them the
Mhm.
information. The less you say, like as soon as you start talking about your monetary system, then people are like, "Oh, well, if you're going to go that far, how do they
Mhm.
take out loans? What is,
Mhm.
what's your taxation like?" But if you just don't talk about it, then everybody assumes it works.
See, I'm on the other side of readers where if you give me too much information, I just assume it's not important and then I start skimming.
Then you
And then
skim
later,
everything.
yeah,
Nothing's
when
important.
I'm just like, oh, this doesn't seem important because why would I ever learn about the currency of the system? And then something comes up and I'm like, oh, I guess I learned it back during the currency talk. So,
Yeah, yeah, I call it like the dishware. You go into a when you go into a room in a book, and all of a sudden we're just describing the plates and the forks. I'm like, do it? No, stop.
Well, Travis, a huge part of Brigands and Breadknives is seeing Fern struggle with saying no and her fear of disappointing others, mainly her friends. And it's this really raw experience to portray. And I was kind of wondering, like, as a narrator, do you think it was harder to find Fern's voice and to act out these scenes because she's dealing with these really raw emotions?
For me, they were really, really personally present. So it was not hard to get into that mindset at all. That's specifically something that I have struggled with and was struggling with a lot at the time. I'm a people pleaser. I don't know how to say no. It feels like I'm disappointing someone every time I do it. And I had things going in my life where I was, having to, for me and my own well-being, choose things that people that I cared about weren't going to agree with. And so all of that felt very, very relevant and very easy to talk about. Um, it's also kind of cathartic to narrate that kind of stuff because you get
Mhm.
to express it in a way that you don't as a normal human trotting around interacting with people. You get to take the slightly hyperbolic route, maybe say things and do things in a way that you wouldn't as a person, but still that let you embody that feeling for a while.
It felt like this audiobook in particular, though, you're kind of like playing around, having fun with it, though, because we had so many different voices with the two different swords, our knife and our sword, and we have Zill and we have Asterix and we have our favorites too that are like getting dispersed in there from time to time. And I just felt like it seemed like a lot of fun to play with all of those voices. Was it like
It
that?
is. It is. I like doing comedy work too. Like
Hmm.
it's sad that there aren't as many comedy books as there used to be. You used to just have books that were funny, and now it's just like incidental. But I love doing that kind of stuff. I like trying to make the joke land or trying to make something amusing when you know it's intended. So being able to do bannery stuff with weird characters is just I think is great. I
Hmm.
enjoy doing it, and I love books that let me do it. I love reading Will White's books, for instance, because he's great at that. Another author favorite is Kyle Kieran, and he writes just hysterical characters. And I think I'm only like a shadow of that compared to what they pull off. So, but it's aspirational.
oh, well, talked a lot about how Fern is pulling a little bit from your life and the people pleasing, but I also noticed that she was similar to you and that she's someone who was good at her old job, but she's now feeling this thing where it's not meant for her anymore. And as she goes, like I noticed in this book, she doesn't even know she has the right answer on what she was doing. I wondered, is that something that you were also feeling when you were writing this book or examining on your life?
Gosh, yes. And for me, it wasn't so much a job at the time. So I got to talk about the feelings that I had, um, doing so with someone's journey that was basically kind of the opposite of Viv's. And somebody going the other way. For me, it was more about relationships and people and growth over time. But I think that her job was kind of like a stand-in for that. And for her, it's also about people too. It's about the relationships that she has and or wants to have and how she treats people that she cares about. Um, so it was again, it was very pertinent to me.
We won't go into too many details. We won't make you reveal all on the pod.
So what actually speak to that? What were you thinking about?
Really get into your own personal life right now, Travis. Let us hear it all. No.
All of it, all of it. Dear Abby.
We won't let you leave until you tell us exactly what you were struggling. And no, of course. Well, another thing Fern, I like that really resonated with me as I was reading this is Fern's struggle with her own internal guilt for kind of leaving behind something that she feels people were relying on her for, and that she can't even vocalize why she left. We've heard a lot in the other books about Viv leaving others behind and moving forward, but here we actually get to experience someone doing it and how it affects characters that we know and love. How did you thread the needle of understanding, the main character is about to do something that people may disagree with or feel strongly one way or another about, while also understanding she really felt motivated to do something like this?
Um, it felt a little messy. People are kind of often divided on whether they're how willing they are to follow a flawed character, somebody who's struggling with something that maybe is unlovely or hard, or messy, right? And a lot of times we want, especially for like escapist fiction, we want our heroes to be perfect. We want them to have a challenge, but not too much, and we don't want to doubt, who they are, at their core. So I was worried about that. And I think a certain number of people read this book and are like, boy, I would never do that. I don't, it's really hard for me to get behind Fern. But it was hard for Fern to get behind Fern too. And the way that I kind of justified this to myself was that the whole point of the book is largely that sometimes you're doing a thing that is going to disappoint people that you care about, and you have to. And for me, writing this book, if somebody's disappointed with it, I have to do the thing that's going to disappoint them. And I care about their opinion. So in sort of a meta way, I justified it to myself because it's also the theme of the book.
Hmm.
It's just another way that the book kind of reflects more or less what I'm doing at the time. So um, for me, it's the step of I feel like this is the thing that I want to talk about. I think that other people have felt this thing, and I think it's worth talking about. And I think that when you're in it, sometimes it's really easy for people to be critical of you while you are going through this thing. But you probably don't even have the space to worry about that while you're going through that thing. You've got something hard that's challenging you, and you know that it's probably the healthy move to do. But it's not going to be orderly, and it's not going to be maybe as nice as you want it to be until you get to the other end of it. And hopefully people stick through, like Fern redeems herself to some extent. But even the ending, when you get to the ending, the whole point of the ending is that some people are going to think that's the wrong decision. But that's okay. That's the whole point. She's allowed to make a decision that you don't think is the right one because it's right for her. It's okay for her to disappoint you. That's, again, the point.
Well, it goes to the subverting of expectations that you love, of like, well, you can't just expect this to be the ending.
Well, it's a weird thing to do with a ostensibly cozy series, right? Here, let's
Mhm.
just cozy is largely about giving you what you want. I want the warm, cozy payoff at the end. I want to feel that everything wrapped up and I feel safe. And it's not exactly that. It's something else. But that's for me, that's okay. It feels important. I don't want to write the same book over and over. And I don't want to try and only satisfy people in a very particular way endlessly. I just don't if I could write a checklist of how to write the book and execute it and make more books, that's not I don't think that's a way that I want to continue being a writer. So
Mhm. Well, and I think it goes back to like what defines cozy, because I think it's do you want it to be a very specific ending, the romance of the happily ever after, or do you want it to be a feeling? And for Fern, she found her voice and she found her decision making, and that in and of itself is a journey she went on
yeah.
and she succeeded at. So,
I wanted there to be something personally affirming, but it doesn't have to be personally affirming for everybody. In the same way that some people hate coffee and Legends and Lattes is just never going to be their bag. It's okay if it doesn't encompass every potential reader. Every book doesn't have to be for every reader.
I do think though there's like a overarching relatability that a majority of people can resonate with in your books for sure. And especially like in this one, it resonated with me. We have this woman that's aging and a raccoon woman that is aging and dealing with like a life and career crisis and like overwhelming anxiety, honestly. And I think it's unique too how this book also portrays how friendships and relationships can really inspire us to do great things and go out of our comfort zones. And we see Fern being inspired by Viv and inspired by Asterisk. And I was kind of wondering along your writing journey or your narration journey if there have been authors or other narrators who have been particularly inspiring or supportive to you along the way.
Lots. I've been inspired by many of the writers that I have read for, as well as writers that never got the chance to narrate for. I mentioned Will White earlier. I was just kind of blown away by what he managed to achieve. He's just so efficient and great at characterization. I was just like, man, I would like to be able to do that. And it was also uh, the first inkling I had that you could be spare in what you're doing and still achieve your goal. That you don't have to drown people in words in order to pull off what you want to pull off. Um, these books would not exist without my best friend, Avon Shorekind, who convinced me to write it and has supported me writing all of these books and writes a book when I write a book to make sure that I write a book. I don't think I've ever been so supported in my life. It's incredible. So, the narration community as a whole is super, super wholesome and nice and supportive.
I love to hear that.
It's you get the sense like that, like Hollywood actors, that's a little bit more cutthroat, right? That it's not somebody else got the role you wanted. That it's a little bit more competitive, I guess. But narration is very much a rising tide lifts all boats. You got that book I wanted. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you. It's super wholesome.
That's great.
That's so nice.
I can
Well,
just like picture like you get a message from like Robin Miles or Emily Wu Zeller like, "Congrats, Travis." I'm like, what?
They're all everybody is so supportive. It's super cool. And maybe it's just because we all sit in boxes all day and are starved for connection.
It's the
Just
socialization
gotta talk to
aspect.
somebody. That's the socialization aspect.
just being
There's
happy
a
for each other. That's a
yeah,
better socialization than most.
Yes.
there's the Audio Book Publishers Association convention that happens every year in like New York, and everybody gets together. It's basically just a big. It's just seeing all these people that you have either only seen in a Zoom window or you've only heard them narrate, and you get to hang out and have a beer. And it's in New York. It's amazing.
And you're like, "That's what they look like?" Oh my gosh. We've only heard your voice.
Well,
Yeah, a lot of us have pictures from like a decade ago.
oh yeah, that sounds like business. Yeah. Uh, I really love how often you have zany characters. Zill is such a good ad, and she was added way back in
Amazing.
Bookshops and Bonedust with her love of pockets. But you got to add so many details here, like her fixation on poisonous chickens. And then you get to add asterisks and talking swords and Bradley, who was one of my favorites. Uh,
Bradley, get it right.
Bradley, yeah. How dare I? Can you tell us how you developed the traveling band of misfits that you did?
It honestly ends up being weirdly organic because I come up with characters and I want to use them in something and then I don't find a place for them and then they sit around, but I don't give them up. So as soon as I find a place to slot them in, I find a way to slot them in. So Zill had many books that she was supposed to be in. She was supposed to be the lead character in the second or third version of Bookshops and Bonedust that didn't work out. Um, and then I managed to stuff her into a short story mystery, and that's where she met Bradley. And so now I have them, and they're hanging around. And then when I wanted to tell this story, like, what could I add to this that would take it beyond just like a buddy trip to be something else, something a little bit more chaotic? And oh, look who I've got sitting over here on the shelf. I'm just going to stuff you in there. And for me, a lot of it is taking characters that didn't end up where I wanted them to end up and just trying them out, slotting them into the hole, seeing what happens. And sometimes something cool happens, and then I stick with it. Things like I do like talking weapons. I'm a big fan of talking weapons. So any chance I get to stuff a talking weapon in.
Kind of building off that, we see that Fern really like experiences a lot of failure throughout the book and faces failure, but you do a really good job of like spinning failure into like this launch pad for future opportunities and kind of building off you talking about like what characters fit into what places. What do you have like a character in mind that you have like created that hasn't really found its place and has maybe failed to become like a bigger voice in one of your stories that you think is a really good future opportunity for some of your writing?
I mean, I have stories that I want to tell about various of the characters that have already appeared. I really had a story I wanted to do with Satchel because I like Satchel
Hmm.
and I know where
Hmm.
he went, and people ask about him all the time. So I would like him to have his story, and who knows who he's going to be with. I'll probably add some new folks to the mix. I think Tandra's interesting, and talking about what she used to do would be interesting. Um, I think that Zelia Greatstrider, I had a whole book that she was the protagonist for, and her and Burke, and that's where Pot Roast was originally her pet,
Okay.
until her story didn't work out, and I had Pot Roast laying around. Oh, yep, Fern needs a pet. That's Pot Roast. I've got him here on the shelf. Um, but I will continue to just. I probably have a list of other characters that I have from stories that I abandoned that are just languishing, and I'll drag them out.
Well, I'm excited to see which ones make it out next.
I am a little interested because I know you have like so many different characters and so many different stories. How do you know which one's working for you, or what's the process of you like picking something up and then being like, you know what, I don't think this is the one.
Usually, it's a mental process. It's just like trying to find two atoms that collide in your brain, and like, oh, that's a new thing. That's what I want to see. But sometimes it's been you have that atom collision, you put them in the book, and you write a little bit, and you say, nope, actually, that's not as interesting or as I want it to be. I don't have the configuration right. I don't have the right mix. Um, I don't know if I have a real science to it yet. I'm still bumbling my way through.
It's
No,
a
that's
vibes thing.
fair. Yeah. And a vibes is a good answer. I just you seem to have like such a clear vision of like, oh, that's not working. And I'm like, how do you know? Because that's such a unique skill to have. Because I feel like so many
Another too is
writers
like
will, yeah.
it's like contrast, right? Are these characters all identifiable if they're in the room? Does everybody
Mm.
have a voice? Does everybody? I mean, I have a rule for all my characters that they have a name. They should be able to support a whole story, or they don't belong in a story. If I don't want to write another story about them, then there's not enough character there to work with. Um, so I, that makes it a little bit easier because they're realized enough that if they've got the same kind of perspective, then maybe they don't need to be here together. If there's nothing for them to talk about, there has to be something for them to talk about or disagree about, or they have to be going on a journey that's parallel or perpendicular. There's got to be something there that lets them relate. Otherwise, there's not anything to talk about. And as soon as there's not anything to talk about, you're just talking about, the mundanities of advancing through the plot, and that's not very interesting to me.
Or chaos to appear everywhere they go and things for them to steal, that kind of thing. I do think that's interesting, though, that you look at it from the standpoint of like almost the standpoint of like everybody has an interesting story and we just aren't bringing their story to like the foreground necessarily
Yeah.
in all of the stories. I think that's really interesting
Yeah.
to go about it that
And I
way.
will and I will happily play with the characteristics of a character. Like they can still develop even when they're not being used. This is who I thought this was, but here's something else that would enrich their character. And now all of a sudden I want to tell a story about that.
Hmm.
Um, the thing I'm working on right now is not using any of these characters. So it's more new characters, different world, different kind of book. And so it's also a totally different kind of thing, but still the base rules apply. I have to want to see these people in a room and see what they do. And I have to be interested in them enough to want to follow them around for a while.
Sure.
Makes sense. Well, in this story, we have Fern kind of expanding her world throughout, including a stopover at a monastery where her own reactions to people are challenged and her own preconceived notions are questioned. But they're also kind of forced because
Uh-oh.
through it, sometimes she's like, well, I think I was right to have this opinion.
You cut
What
out there for a
made
second,
you
Hannah.
want to add this lore in this religion? Oh, sorry, I can
I'm
repeat the
assuming you
question.
said that they
So we
were
have
validated, her
Reinforced.
concerns were
Yeah.
validated,
yeah,
reinforced.
reinforced a little bit. Yeah, because in some ways she thinks she's a little right. But what made you want to add this lore and religion type building scene for Fern?
There's probably a couple of different reasons. One, big fan of Redwall. I like mice in an abbey.
Mhm.
So having a chance to do rat people in an abbey, why not? And if they worship an evil god, that's just a nice inversion for me. But I wanted to have some dark elements that didn't feel cut and dried. Like these are the evil people, these are the good people. Even Tulla is like the bad guy, but kind of like her a little bit, you know. She's sort of tough and, you know, and has a lot of conviction. And I wanted to have a darker element that had a justification for why it existed. Um, and that wasn't just one note. And again, the aforementioned rats in an abbey. Um, I don't know if I've got anything deeper than that. I probably do if I think about it for a while.
Well, we don't have to think that hard about it.
You don't have to think that hard.
You could say because
It's not
Redwall,
that
and
much
that's good
pressure.
enough
Just
because yeah.
because, just
I
because.
why does
It's
she
not
have
that
a
much
red
pressure.
coat? Because I love Mrs. Brisby
Because
and the
Travis
Rats of
Baldree
Nim.
and the Rats of Nim, obviously, obviously.
Rats and fantasy go hard. Uh, Travis,
I
you've
also
been
like the idea of an evil god that's just really needs to constantly be, adored. He just needs
yes.
validation. The evil god needs validation, needs constant validation.
The god
I
has
just like that
anxiety
idea.
too.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
do you
just
guys love
anxious.
me?
Does anybody care about me?
You better be praying, right? You are. Well, Travis, we've talked about a little bit about cozy and defining cozy as a genre, and you mentioned in the acknowledgments of this book that it was difficult to write, and you had a lot of doubt about the way the story and the scenes played out compared to previous books. And you're obviously very well known as being like the cozy fantasy writer now. And I was kind of wondering, what's it been like for you seeing the way that cozy stories are kind of evolving in your writing?
So for my writing specifically, or just kind of in the larger
You
world?
know what? Both, maybe, I guess, or whatever, whichever one
Um,
you're feeling.
I mean, I didn't set out to write cozy. That
Hmm.
wasn't what I intended to do. I didn't think, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write cozy stories.
And you
That
know
was
what? I had
me.
never honestly heard of cozy fantasy until
Neither did
Legends and
I.
Lattes.
Neither did I. I don't think I think the term got stapled to Legends and Lattes, and I'm very
Hmm.
grateful, but I don't, it wasn't what I set out to do. Um, and not in an ungrateful way, but I don't want to just write cozy stories. So I strain against expectations almost immediately. What can I get away with? Um, and that's one of the anxieties I have in the back of my mind writing the book I'm writing now. It's not set in Legends and Lattes. Are people going to be fine with something that's not cozy at all? It's just not interested in it. That's not what it's about. A different kind of story, different kind of structure, um, a different subgenre. And I don't know. Are people going to be like, nope, go back to the well, away with you? I have no clue. So I had some of the same anxiety with Brigands and Breadknives, and I think some of it's borne out. I mean, I think that
Hmm.
it divides people more than the previous books did. And even Bookshops was more divisive than the first one because it wasn't exactly the same thing.
Hmm.
And some people just want the same thing. And some people want almost the same thing but new. They want the flavor of it to something different. And some people want you to do something different altogether. They just don't want any repetition whatsoever. And you can't please all of those people ever. So you're just going to have to pick and choose.
I think we're very interested in your next book. So you
I
have some
mean,
readers
you're
here.
selling me.
Yeah.
The next book, I'm really trying to finish. I'm hoping I'll finish by the end of this month. It's already twice as long as Brigands. And it's I don't know if I don't know if you want to talk about this.
Yeah, we did
Yes,
talk to
absolutely.
All
us
right.
about it.
So I have narrated a lot of LitRPG books. If you're familiar with the genre, anybody listening who is not,
Dungeon Crawler
LitRPG
Carl.
is, yeah, Dungeon Crawler Carl is the biggest example of that.
Mhm.
There's a huge genre of that existed before that.
Hmm.
And I've narrated hundreds of them. And so I have all kinds of opinions at this point. And I used to make games. Um, so I'm writing a lit RPG, and it's not super gamey. It's more what I would want. And it's called Four Bastards and a Baby. I have to not have an alliterative title. This is how I make sure you know it's not Legends and Lattes.
And
Um,
put bastards in the names.
put bastards in. Um, and it's not like it's grimdark or anything. It's not. I think I still probably write characters very similarly to the way I always write characters, but structurally it's very different.
Hmm.
It's much more plot driven and idea driven. And it has a bunch of weird characters, but it's not so much about vibes and a personal change in life at all. And is anybody going to be on board for that? I don't know. Go back to the coffee shop, Travis. I have no idea. We'll just see.
You know what? I like that you're branching out though and trying these types of things because it's probably very cathartic for you to be able to get out of the coffee shop, as you
I mean, and I
say.
like, and I love those books, and I'm proud of them. But they all of them feel like they're dependent on me having a personal realization to write them. It's like this is something that's
Hmm.
important to me that I understand change, a crossroads, and
Hmm.
those are the things that those books hinge on. And I don't know if I'm going to manufacture one, and I'm sure I've had plenty that I could go back and find a way to transplant into a book, but I don't want to do that all the time. And I want to be able to write a different kind of book. It's much harder for me to write a long book that is plot driven. It's just more challenging for me. And it has
Well,
multiple POVs and multiple locations. And that's not something I normally gravitate toward. But it felt like the only way to do the thing that I'm doing. So now I'm stretching my boundaries, I guess.
That
have you
sounds a
been
bit,
kind of
it's
like drawn to lit RPG though? I know you said you narrate tons of them, but
I
have
don't
you
read.
been
I
drawn to
read the
writing them?
ones people pay me to read. I read the ones people pay me to read. For me, it's just down to whether the story is good. I don't I don't like lit RPG for lit RPG. I'm not delighted by
Okay.
game elements in a thing. I think they can provide like a level of progression and they give you a structure that people understand. And I think you can do all kinds of things with that. I care about are they characters that I'm interested in, and do I want to see where they go and how they change? And that can
Hmm.
happen in lit RPG as well as it can happen in anything else. So I have read lit RPGs where that's the case. And you read Dungeon Crawler Carl, it's got all kinds of things on its mind. It's got characters that you're interested in following, and that's what makes it work for me. So I gravitate to a good story.
Sure. I dig it.
it's almost like you're a ratkin opening a bookshop and you're like, well, I want
Mm.
to see if there's
Yep.
anything else out there. And so you're setting out on your journey. So
It all connects.
well, and this actually leads into my next question because when I was reading this, it does feel kind of like an adventure or an RPG game of they're going to different towns, they have these events that have to take place. And I was thinking about the inversion of your characters, where a lot of times we'd be following asterisks as the POV, the main character.
Yep.
Was it fun taking a story that we're used to, like a traditional campaign, and turning it on its head, where we're looking at a character like, this ratkin, just kind of watching it happen and becoming part of it?
Yeah, I mean for me, I think it's much more enjoyable to talk about the weirdos. The people that you wouldn't normally see doing the thing. I feel like I've read so many fantasy adventure stories, and I know where this character is going. I know what's happening. I'm just not interested in telling stories that have already been told the same way.
Mhm.
When I was younger, I was. I wanted to just imitate what I liked. And now I have seen enough of all of that, and I want to try and do something that hopefully can still entertain me at the end of it. So if it's just a replication of something I've already read, I'm not as interested. Plus, I think following the hero is overrated. It's just they got
Well,
they
I
got to
think
they got to
heroes come
tick
in
all
many
these
forms.
boxes.
I think
It's
heroes come in many forms, and you saying like you like to follow the weirdos. Like, I
They
think
can be
weirdos can be
heroes, yeah.
heroes.
The traditional hero, the white hat.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of the best way to describe that.
Sure, sure.
it's so funny because every time you say something, I'm just like, that's Asterix talking, where she's like, I've had all the conversations so many
I've
Hmm.
done
times.
this.
I do like this is maybe me just gushing over you a little bit, but you can take even just these answers to things and make them seem like you give really profound answers in like a simple way. And I don't know how you do that, but I'm very jealous of it. I wish I could do this.
I don't well I'll take your word for it, but I'm going to assume if that it really does happen is because I sit and I talk into this all the time, or
Probably
maybe it's just
helpful.
because I spent decades trying to make meetings run short.
Um,
Well, you
Let's
know what?
sum this up, folks.
We'll start wrapping this up
Oh no, no, I
because
don't mean this. I don't mean. But if you go to a meeting and you've been to those meetings
oh
where
yeah.
somebody's just talking to hear themselves talk for like 15 minutes and
you're
everybody's
like, this
kind of
could have been an
staring at
email.
the ceiling or doodling on the whiteboard. I've been in quite a few of those. And like, all right, let's make this thing. Let's make this thing work.
Well, October is going to be a big month for you this year because Tales from the
Hmm.
Territory comes out, and so does the Legends and Lattes graphic novel, if I'm remembering right.
They both come, I think, within a week of each other. Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
so Tales from the Territory, from what I have learned from my extensive creeping, is going to be like a collection of short stories, including Goblins and Greatcoats, and we're also going to get a glimpse into Tandrew's backstory a little bit.
There's a Tandri backstory, which is actually kind of the weirdest, slightly creepiest, most Twilight Zoney story of the bunch. We'll see how people deal
Uh-huh.
with that. And then there's a Viv and Tandri story.
I'm
Um,
looking forward to that too because it looks like there's going to be a little turmoil at Legends and Lattes, a la a comedy episode of
and
a show.
there's a Thimble short.
Okay.
What did Thimble do before Legends and Lattes?
Beautiful.
So we're getting
And
these deep dives into these characters, a little bit
yeah,
deeper dive.
there'll be a little bit deeper dive. And the Viv and Tandri one is called Cavaliers and Coffees, like a rival copycat coffee shop opens up in town.
Mhm.
It does not go over well.
I would
Beautiful.
assume not. And then I was also wondering, like, what was the experience of like having your work turned into a graphic novel? Like,
Uh, it's pretty darn cool. It's pretty
hmm
darn cool. It's a long-term kind of involved process from the adaptation to like the character development to the thumbnails to the approvals to the art. Um, Legends and Lattes, I think, was a reasonably straightforward adaptation because the story is not exceptionally complicated. And there's not a lot of interior dialogue that drives things. So most
hmm
things are external and they transition to a visual pretty well. And I tend to be a very visual writer anyway. I kind of see things like a
Mm.
movie. So it felt
Sure.
like a pretty reasonably easy translation because you didn't have to cut very much. It's not actually a very long or super complicated story either. So
hmm
I was really pleased with the way it went. I really think the artwork is beautiful. I'm really happy with how it turned out.
And who
In
is
the
the
middle,
artist?
there were two, and it was, I'm gonna make sure get everybody's names right.
Sorry, because you're off guard.
Yeah. Sam Satin was the adapter, and it was Shanti Ritgers and Sarah Webb were the artists
Okay.
with character and background art separate. And Bookshops is currently being adapted, and it's a little more complicated because it's a longer, more complicated story.
hmm A
Gotta
lot
read
more
those
action, more
necromancers,
places.
right? Yeah.
More action, yeah, it covers a little bit more ground, and it's a longer book.
hmm
So there's a little more condensation, and that's its own kind of unique challenge is figuring out a way to make sure that the bits of the story hang together and get condensed in a way that still reads.
I'm excited to get it.
I hope
I
you like it.
cannot
I
wait.
think it came out cool. I really like the way that the art came out. It feels like a very true to the book adaptation to me. I'm really
I'm
pleased with how it
Amazing.
glad.
came out.
This is the silliest question we are ever going to ask you, so I'm going to preface it with that. I have to ask.
Leave yourself room to ask something silly later.
Well, we're getting towards the end. But this is a very silly thing. I noticed that Zill often had lots of knives and forks in
Yep.
pockets. You've called it the dishware problem or the silverware problem before, and I wondered if you were giving yourself a nod to too much descriptions with silverware
You
in
know,
Zill's
I had
pockets.
not thought about that, but I like that, and maybe I will just adopt that as my answer for how that
Perfect.
is. Because yeah, she just taking all this irrelevant silverware off of the table so it doesn't have to be described.
You just fell
Beautiful.
into that one.
This is perfect. This is perfect. I love this
Yes,
justification.
absolutely. Well, Travis, a
Um,
huge part of your experience is that you really openly share the process of this writing and the story with your fans. And you have a lot of special editions and a lot of people that create artwork for your books and everything. Can you tell us, like, is there any kind of like approval process that goes into any of the artwork or the special editions or anything like that?
Yeah, there's almost always some sort of approval process, and it's different for different publishers in different situations. And you're trying to be respectful of the artists that have been chosen and making sure they have a chance to make it their own within certain bounds. I commissioned art for a really long time for video games, so I'm used to working with artists, and I've done a certain amount of art and photoshopping and stuff myself over the decades. So hopefully, I'm a good collaborator on those things, and I don't ask for too much and choose the right things to focus on. But yeah, there is an approval process, but it can vary from thing to thing, and I try to be concise and not overbearing.
Have there been any like pieces of art that you've been like, oh, this is really cool. I really liked that.
There's been tons. There's been tons. I love the way that the graphic novel characterizations came out. I've had some really incredible fan art that has been created. I get prints of it when I can. I I went to an event and an artist had done kind of like a JC Leyendecker style painting of Viv and Tandri, and Viv's in a tux and Tandri's in a dress, and it's got that kind of like Saturday Evening Post vibe to it, and
Hmm.
it's just super cool. I immediately like, can I buy this from you? Um, uh, yeah, there's been a lot of good stuff. Carson Lowmiller's original art for Legends and Lattes and all the work that he's done for me afterward is just spectacular, and I love all of it.
I love that.
That has to be an amazing experience as an artist to
Hmm.
have the the
It's
writer be
it's
like, I want to
really
buy
cool.
this.
It's really cool.
Like, yeah.
Well,
Well,
Travis, we've really appreciated having you on. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and where to look for your upcoming works that are coming down the pipeline?
I am at Travis Baldree on pretty much every social media thing that I managed to check. TravisBaldree.com is my website. I don't know why anybody would go there, but you can. Um, and upcoming, yeah, as you mentioned earlier, there's a graphic novel coming out, Legends and Lattes in October, and Tales from the Territory. And I'm working on another book now, which will eventually come out. Eventually, writing more after
well,
that. I have other things that I want to do after that, which will also be different and weird. And hopefully we'll roll back around to Legends and Lattes too.
I know you
I
said you
love
were
it.
worried about people reading the next one because it's not Legends and Lattes universe, but we will definitely be there and you're always
We'll be
welcome
on it.
back.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the support, definitely.
And can you tell our listeners what you're reading, watching, and or enjoying right now?
Um, not doing a lot of reading right now. I just finished reading the Unbroken anthology for Peter Aurelian. There's a lot of really cool short stories in it. I have been watching Widow's Bay, which I think is great.
Okay.
I think it is the perfect balance of scary and funny. And
Oh,
the
fun.
last episode was spectacular. And Patricia with a shotgun. I'm just going to say that. And if you have watched it, those last scenes are just hysterical to me. So
Beautiful.
Okay, Patricia with a shotgun. That's all we need to
with a
say.
shotgun.
Well, thank you again for coming on. We so
Yes,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Listeners, you know where to find us, OWWR
Hmm.
Pod on all the places we exist or ourpod.com.
Hmm.
And we just thank everyone for tuning in today. And thank
Yeah.
you, Travis, for joining.
I was delighted to. Thank you both so much.
Bye.
Bye.